We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Fucking thing sucks.
All right, it's a live show for this week. This week we got myself, Mike, he, him, and potentially Ward, he, him, from the Turn Leftist podcast. We got Nick, he, him, from the Intervention podcast. We got Brandon, he, him, from the Cars of Comrades podcast. We got Rick, he, him, from Decolonized Buffalo. And we got Jared, he, him, our comrade from Australia. And we got Jamie, she, her. Just at the last second, she just jumped in. I love that.
I like how
excellent timing.
I like how everyone's like, oh yeah, from this podcast and that podcast and this podcast, and it's like, and Jared from Australia.
I think you're well known enough to our friends at this point that you are a name among yourself. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight is Jared being hot and sexy and just being a name.
Yeah, it's all in the haircut.
So I'm not sure if Ward is actually going to be able to jump in and out. It looks like he's having some computer troubles, but I wanted to, the only thing I brought tonight was just to talk about the U.S. kind of lashing out in every general direction militarily. It seems like, I think there was a headline that just said it best. Can the U.S. wage war, or can the U.S. take on Iran, China, and Russia at the same time? And it's like,
Haiti.
it could
Spoiler
try.
alert, the answer is no.
Oh my God, it just does not seem wise. And
I think
so
the real question is the U.S. willing to try to take on all of those countries?
Yeah.
Sadly, the answer is yes.
So what did I put in the, let me see. Oh, I put it in the wrong channel earlier, but I wanted to go over a couple of talking points, and I did also save some choice comments from some Reddit comment sections about like any article regarding Russia and the Ukraine situation, and just seeing the way that people are just openly fucking fascist at this point, like calling Russians orcs. Yeah, just like the worst kind of dehumanization of this enemy that the U.S. does not even admit is what they're waging a proxy war against. But it seems that even the citizens are willing to admit that that's what's going on, and they're just treating the idea of Russian people as just like subhumans. And it really blows my mind how quick we got there, that this is just like what's going on the internet. Sorry, I'm stalling for time because I'm looking for these talking points that I put in here and I can't find any of it. So
yeah, I mean, Brandon mentioned the Haiti thing. That's something I think we can get started on talking about, right? Obviously, we have the UN being called upon by, I guess, the puppet, president of Haiti, essentially like the US installed, US backed president calling on the UN to do quote unquote peacekeeping efforts, right? In the face of, looks like to me like, a people's uprising, right? But it's being characterized as some kind of like gangster activity, right? So, it's kind of like a uprising against this person that really is there only the result of an assassination attempt, an assassination, right, of somebody that was democratically elected before. But now, of course, they're trying to gaslight everybody into thinking that, oh, here we are, here we go again, spreading freedom and democracy, right? I think Canada dropped a military transport of vehicles. And like the only thing that I want to say here is, and this is kind of a talking point I took from Claire Daly, who's that Irish MEP, and she just said something like, the US, France, just Western Europe broadly, they've never forgiven Haiti for, being the first state to actually overthrow slavery, right? The first like black-led state to actually get rid of it in the Western Hemisphere. And to me, it's just when she said that, it just clicked with me. And it's just like, it's just yet another example of how much white supremacy is built into this system and how much it is a pillar of, capitalism and imperialism, right? And Haiti is just, it just continues to serve as an example of that, right?
Yeah, I just think it's interesting how the whole framing of what's been going on in Haiti has been about gangs, and like the sort of racialized element in that is very, very interesting and also disgusting. Because it is very, very clearly a popular uprising, but pretty much most of the articles you look at are characterizing it as, we need to deal with these quote unquote gangs. And it's like, you're talking about a country of black people basically. And it's like, this is very much like they're writing it for an American, like a white American audience, specifically to bait them into being like, the same sort of reactionary and racist ideas that they hold so close to themselves. It's just so blatant and disgusting. And it's like, I really was quite shocked that they went that far to literally just be like, because I haven't seen it been used in like, I know in other contexts in like the Middle East when there's a popular uprising, they'll be like, oh, it's Islamic terrorism or something like that. But it's just interesting that when they do it it happens in a black country, it becomes gangs, you know.
I've seen it in the international media, but what I wanted to point out is like in contrast, if you look at the Haitian media, the way that they're framing it is that we're preparing for an invasion, like we're getting invaded again. And if you read like their media, they're not viewing it as like there's crime and things are needing to be addressed. It's the rest of the world is invading them to come get involved in their dealings. And that's just sort of the framing that I'm seeing. At least I always try to, like, when there's an uprising or some kind of response, to look into like the local media of how they're reporting and their framing. Because of course we can expect the international, liberal, media conglomerate to pitch it as what's sellable, what supports the military industrial complex. That's what we can expect.
Yeah, 100%.
So I'm not as up to speed on this as I should, but I have seen headlines where I have not been able to look into about finding oil reserves in Haiti. Does anybody know anything about that?
No fucking way.
I saw it and I assumed it was parody because the timing would be too on the nose. But I did see something about that. That's why I'm asking.
That sounds like The Onion, but also I wouldn't be surprised. And
No,
But
I
The
think
Onion
it-
just reads like regular headlines now.
No, but
Yeah,
I
at
think I
this
saw that
point.
too, and it was like that the oil reserves that have been identified there are comparable to Venezuela. I could be incorrect on the country, but it's one of these countries that really relies
That's the
on
headline I read.
oil.
No
Yeah.
fucking
It was-
shot. No shot. Absolutely no fucking shot. You got to be kidding.
That's insane.
I don't know if it's real or not. I'm not somebody who's just gonna like say like yes, this is happening.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
not
No,
have
it's
looked it
just-
up. But at a glance, I saw because somebody was juxtaposing like 3 days after they released like it's the largest oil reserves outside of like Venezuela or something. 3 days later, it's like we're invading Haiti. It's like
Yeah,
well,
these gangs are really a problem all of a sudden.
So I just Googled it real quick, and it looks like a lot of this is from like 2010.
Okay.
That this from 2010. One of the headlines I'm seeing is
Well, it
this
takes
Haiti
a lot of
quake
time
may
to
have-
justify a proxy war.
but it's saying
No, it
this quake
doesn't.
that happened may have revealed oil reserves. And then in 2019, we have an article from the New York Post saying Haiti's resources are limited by their unstable government, right? So it's like we better go help them stabilize and make sure that they can get the full benefit of those resources, right?
Yeah.
It just goes to show the immortal science being proven correct once again. There is always a materialist reason for everything happening. It's not about like, it's never about like freedom, democracy, or whatever the fuck.
Wait, no, Jared, are you sure it's not because Putin is literally Hitler? It's because Putin is literally Hitler. Putler.
Adolf.
Wait a
Adolf
minute.
Hitler-
Wait, I'm pretty sure it was because Ukraine has Nazis and we have to go save the Ukrainians from it.
Yeah.
we have
I mean-
to go save the Ukrainian Nazis.
That's what it is.
Wait, that depends on which media outlet you're speaking to, but some variation of that is true. It's not like one of the presidents has swastikas on his bracelet in clear broad daylight or anything. I'd love to give a little update. We've had a little update here in Los Angeles since the last episode, or I think it was the one before, when the nuclear local politics episode that we did. We were talking about LA City Council. There was an explosive bombshell racist audio that leaked, and our city council president has since resigned as president. And then it went further that they protested her to the point where she resigned completely from the council. The other two male city council members, however, refused to resign. And now BLM is literally camping in the front yards of these politicians. Just a quick update.
I think we should combine the two topics.
Yeah.
Russia should invade Los Angeles. That's my take. We
And
should-
free them from the fucking fascists that are in power there.
Can I get Soviet era Russia? Because the current Russia is not the one that we need.
Yeah.
I don't know. You ask some Pat Socks. Apparently, they're huge fans. They're huge fans of the Russian Federation. It's
God, tell me about that comment section of that meme that we dropped today. Yikes.
yeah.
What's the CPUSA involvement with the PatSock movement? What is that relation? Because I see a lot of dialogue on that. Is there any?
I don't know.
It's
It
from
that it's
I'm not from America, obviously, but I speak to a lot of people in America who are in like these American communist parties, and it seems to me like a lot. I don't know, just outside perspective, it seems a lot of American communist parties are the worst, and they have like fallen into that rabbit hole. And it seems like more of them have than haven't. And not the whole party, but like just they have like individual groups within them who are like sort of either PatSocs or PatSoc adjacent. And I think that when the Ukraine war sort of kicked off, that sort of brought all that stuff to the forefront, where it might have just been like bubbling away in the background. I mean, it's happened here a little bit as well, but not to the same extent. Yeah.
I find it frustrating that like there's very few people outside of Pat Sox and fucking Republicans who understand what is actually going on between Russia and Ukraine right now. And they're all saying it for all the wrong reasons because they have no effect on the situation whatsoever and they just want to be anti fucking Democrat. But there's like
Which is
actual like
awesome.
well, I mean, yeah, be anti-democrat, but like, don't be fucking pro-republican. Like,
Yeah.
you're totally missing the point of being anti-bourgeois electoralism if you're going to be pro-fucking MAGA. Like, that's the whole. It drives me nuts. But like, I don't like being in league with them even on this fucking issue, even if it is for all the wrong reasons, and it drives me nuts. Like, I don't like all the fucking people who have like just Z in their profile and the Russian flags. It's like, yeah, you're just a fucking patsock, and that's annoying. That like that's such a signifier because it actually is good to like see an army that's wiping out some literal neo-Nazis. I don't know. It's just I should not be surprised at how quickly the liberals sided with the fascists and NATO, and then tell themselves it's different this time after having seen the recent evidence of the exact same lies being used. Like the fucking Viagra shit came out again today. Like that's a
Oh
fun
my
one.
god.
Like,
But like
the
the liberal
Viagra
shit
shit.
is becoming like apologia. They're not like there was a point I think where it was like denialism of like, oh, it's not as bad. And now it's just apologia. And like you mentioned the Wagner group earlier, right? And it's like, well, Russia has them too, so like let them fight to defend their homeland, right? Like let those Nazis fight because they're defending Ukraine. It's like, okay, we're not even denying the existence at this point, right?
Hold on. What's this Viagra thing?
It's the Viagra Group, a Russian military organization. They're very threatening to the Ukrainians because their dicks are so hard at all times.
No, but that's what
I don't
the shit they used
understand.
in Libya, right? Like where they said, Gaddafi's armed forces were, being provided Viagra by the state to, basically promote terror through rape, and they were, given Viagra to do so. And now the same headlines are coming out saying that, the Russian state is providing its soldiers with Viagra so that they can, rape Ukrainian women in this terror campaign.
and
So-
it's just as true as the babies being thrown out of incubators and the weapons of mass destruction. It's all just as equally bullshit.
So it's all
Right.
moral panic tactics.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think the most like principled sort of Marxist take on the Russia-Ukraine situation is to not support either side at all, and just understand the causes of the conflict and the fact that it's you're talking about it's not really an inter-imperialistic war, but it's definitely an inter-capitalist war.
Wait, are you saying that the socialist stance is to be anti-war?
Yeah, apparently.
Oh my God, who would have guessed that?
Yeah, but anti-war means that you have to put a Ukraine flag in your bio and then temporarily support NATO so that you can beat back the imperialist Russia that is also doing fascism against the entire race of Ukrainians. Even though, like, okay, that's actually a question. I have a legit
It
question.
sounds like fascism with extra steps to me, but go on.
What is the? Where
Russia's
is it
just
that?
trying to do a whole new Holodomor?
Where have they said that they want to exterminate all the Ukrainians? Because I have not seen like Putin or the Russian state saying that. Like I've seen Article 16 of the Ukrainian Constitution that says a lot of weird shit about like securing their genetics or their race or whatever it is. However they phrased it, that's really strange. But like I have not seen Putin demand anything other than those two territories and like Ukraine staying out of NATO and basically going back to like pre 2014 era relations, right? Like I think that's all that's being demanded.
Yeah, I mean, and like just to that point, like Jared's definitely right, and like obviously we need to be anti-war, but I think part of the analysis is you have to place the comparison in terms of like world power. Like you have to be very clear-eyed about that, right? Because in terms of imperialist aspirations and things like that, I mean, whatever Putin may have, I don't know. He can't even do it. Like, even if he is the monster that they painted him as and that he would continue to roll through like Eastern Europe and Poland and everything like that, he cannot do that because of how the world is situated right now with the US as the global hegemon with 900 military bases and NATO at its beck and call. Like, it's just reality. You know what I mean? I don't know his personal ambitions. I don't know the ambitions of the Russian state, right? Like, I don't think that he would I don't think he aspires to do that. He also just can't, right? So I agree that the framing as like an inter-imperialist, I don't think we're quite there yet. You know what I mean? Just because it's not the same. It's not the same as, Germany fighting the UK and France in World War I, right?
Yeah, that's why I sort of backed away from saying it was inter-imperialist. I think it's definitely an inter-capitalist conflict with
For sure.
With Ukraine basically being used as a I don't know if it's a proxy. Ukraine's a proxy at the moment.
Cannon
It's being
fodder.
used-
They're cannon fodder.
They're being used in a geopolitical fight between two larger powers. Mind you, one of those powers is much, 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 much larger and much, much, much more imperialistic, the USA and NATO, by far. Like, we're talking like 20, 30, 40 times worse. But it doesn't really let the Russian Federation off the hook. They're still a capitalist country, and they're still capable of like local imperialism towards their neighbors, and they've done that in the past, and they'll continue doing that because they're a capitalist country that bullies its neighbors. But it's people have to have no delusions about the fact that out of both countries, we're talking the NATO and USA alliance versus the Russian Federation, there is a power disparity and extent of imperialism where one side is much, much more capable and much, much worse historically than the other, by far, by huge orders of magnitude, and that's the USA.
And I just want to make sure to point out, like, Russia's just doing what America has been doing for the last
What about
however long.
just
putting in a proxy war in another country? They realize that it's a profitable thing to do to uphold an ongoing military industrial complex, to just have an ongoing state of war. And honestly, that I think more countries are going to start trying to do that. That it just builds capital and secures resources and gives you political leverage. And I think that's just going to become business as usual as we enter this like late stage hypercapitalism.
I guess just, and not to harp on it too much, I guess just one other like major distinction I would draw is that I think we all agree that we need to like condemn the war and everything like that. But like, whereas the US has never had grounds for action on the basis of defense, I mean, even in like World War II, I think that's arguable. I think you could make the case that like, while you still don't agree with it, there's at least some basis for Russia to look at NATO expansion into the East and frame, at least have some kind of, there's some veracity to the claim that this is somewhat defensive in nature, whereas like the US is always trying to frame shit as like, oh, we need to defend our freedom. Like, it's always been bullshit, and like there's nothing even close to what this situation has kind of, the situation that's been set for Russia in this scenario, right?
NATO's played like a 40-year-long game of I'm not touching you. Like, get your finger out of my face or I'm going to hit you.
Who do you guys think blew up the Nord Stream? That was definitely Russia, right?
Oh, I'm excited to see. America.
I mean,
everyone I've had a conversation with about the Nord Stream thing, I've just told them, they're like, oh man, isn't it crazy? They always say to me, isn't it crazy how Russia blew it up and Russia did this and Russia did that? And I just said to them, I'll come back to you in 10 years
Yeah.
when the articles come out that say that America did it. And
yeah,
they're
when
like,
that shit
"No,
gets
that's
foiled in 10 years, right?
Yeah. But it's like I'm like
trying to
I know
get
I'm right. Just give me 10 years, and the mainstream media will admit that America blew it up, because that's what happens literally every fucking time. You just wait a couple of years after people stop caring about it, and then they let the mask clip off and they admit who actually did the thing. You
Yeah.
know, it's like
It's
with
not
9/11.
illegal if it's not illegal if the
Yeah.
last generation did it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like if we find out the last generation committed a war crime, we just gotta let that go, I guess. That's
Yeah,
just
I mean, those people are old or dead. Like, we can't really hold them accountable. Like, we'll just learn from this.
destabilizing the governments of other countries. Break a few eggs.
That's what's so
That's just
frustrating to me about it, is that people do not fucking learn. Like, they will just, in another 6 months, they will be signing up for the next fucking conflict. Like, they're going to endorse the invasion of Haiti because of fucking gangs, apparently. They're going to endorse, like, some kind of intervention in Iran if it comes to that. Like, people do not fucking learn from these things, and they're still not learning, even in the process of Ukraine. Like, another thing that bugs me about this is the constant Russia is losing. Like, Russia is losing really bad all the time. They were losing really, really bad from day one of the invasion. They were losing incredibly bad a month in. They were losing much worse after that. They've been losing this whole fucking time, and yet it goes on. And yet they gain territory. They lose some, then they gain it back. It's like, does anybody? I don't understand how people constantly believe the same thing like that. Sorry, Brandon. What's up?
Oh, no, it's all good. I just wanted to say, like, from the second you started seeing videos of like some Ukrainian tractor like towing a fucking Russian tank or whatever, like,
Sunflower grandma.
whatever it was, like everyone's just like, see Ukrainians are beating Russia back, and I'm like, I'm sorry, man, but showing me one video does not prove anything other than that instance happened. Like, you can find the one video of Ukrainians blowing up a Russian tank, and Russia can still plow through the country. And I'm not commenting one way or the other. I don't honestly know the facts on the ground, but like, don't find one video and it's confirmation bias. I found one thing that proves my point, therefore I'm right.
Nobody
I mean,
knows
it's
what's going on the ground. Like, not a single person
funny.
knows.
It's just funny because you're literally saying that they're fighting tanks with tractors, but keep going.
I mean, you look at the articles that came out as soon as the war started, it's pretty obvious that it was never going to go well for Ukraine, and I still think Ukraine's going to lose the war. I mean, as soon as it started, they let a bunch of prisoners out of prison and up their conscription and stuff like that, and stopped men from leaving the country. That's never a sign. When you release everyone from prison to put them into essentially penal battalions to fight a war, that's pretty clear that you're fighting a war of attrition that you're very, very desperate. You're very, very desperate in. So it's like no one knows what's happening on the ground really, but it's like certainly doesn't really look good for Ukraine, I would say.
Yeah, I
Just in
mean,
general.
it's just like to that
That's
point.
a very
It's just,
valid point.
it's just like, look at the relative mobilization. Like, exactly as you said, Ukraine is throwing everything that they have at this. Like, I get it. But Russia, like, in terms of like the initial mobilization for the like quote unquote special military operation, I mean, it's insignificant in comparison to like the defense that was mounted, and that's just like that's just me as a realist speaking to what we can see based on what they're doing now.
Russia's actually cycling its troops. Like, it's actually while Ukraine's committing every single military age male to the war, Russia's actually cycling troops through. It has the same, like, Russia committed like 200,000 troops or something. Although at the start of the war, they only committed 100,000. So they invaded outnumbered, which you don't do usually. So,
well, I want to point out, like, it's a proxy. Like, they're not trying to win. As long as they're there, they're winning. As long as they have a presence there, they're winning.
I think it's more that it's like limited to some specific areas of Ukraine, and they're not necessarily trying to conquer the entire country, although they might have been when they attacked Kiev. But no, I don't think anyone knows what their sort of motives are and how their motives have changed, except like the the Russian government. But my point was just that the Russians are actually cycling their troops through. They have 200,000 troops, and then what they're doing is just periodically taking individuals out and taking new ones in to replace them. So they're just like they're cycling fresh troops. That they have the same 200,000 about their also number, but they're cycling troops in and out. They're able to do that. And now their army is actually extremely experienced and proficient, whereas they probably weren't prior to the war. Because you got to think when was the last time the Russian Federation fought in a war?
Syria? Like I don't know, like when would they even be doing anything? I mean,
yeah,
it sounds like we're cheering on Russia, and I don't want that to be the case. I don't think anybody should take that
No.
from it, but it's like I think we just would like people to take a different point of view than just what I'm really sick of is everybody's having the same fucking opinion as the New York Times, as the New York Times op-eds. Like just try to form your own opinion in some way, and don't keep fucking copying and pasting the same fucking tweets about like Putin is literally Hitler and all this shit, and just thinking that this all just came down to his fucking whims. He just fucking woke up one day and decided to fucking invade Ukraine because he hates Ukrainians. It's like there's world affairs are more complicated than that. And if you are breaking this down to your armchair psychoanalysis of Putin, you are an unserious person, and you should stop having political opinions at all. Like that's fucking ridiculous to be like that as an adult.
If I was your mother, Putin. If I was your mother.
Oh my god.
Sorry, I know Rick had something to fuck.
Yeah, so I think we have to realize that it's the U.S. that funded and armed and that is backing not just the U.S. the West as well. These neo-Nazis, the Azov and all these people. So they're the ones creating this proxy situation. Whichever Russia's fighting or the U.S. is fighting, it doesn't matter because the West is provoking this. So we have to be against Western imperialism, right? This is Western imperialism, straight up. It's not like the Azov or these Nazis grew naturally, organically from Ukraine without the backing of anybody else. They did, 100%. So we have to be against that. I mean, like we don't have to be like, oh, we love Russia, but at the same time we just acknowledge these facts. Right.
Yeah.
So
that's so true. That's so no. I mean, like literally, it's not even like a war of countries at this point. Like this, it is a military-industrial complex that runs between countries, and there is a supply chain. It's a war of capital. It's literally that's my final point. Like it's what we're saying is like we're not cheering on one country or the other. It's not even ultimately like a war of country. It's a war of capital and power. And that's kind of, I guess, what we're asking people to see is that this is a wide snapshot of the situation. We're not taking sides.
Right. I just think that it's like, as communist socialists in the U.S., it's our responsibility to focus our critique upon the state that we are allegedly responsible for at some level, right?
Exactly.
Sure.
So like that's our responsibility, and like. The fact of the matter is that like the funding of Nazis in Ukraine isn't even a relatively new phenomenon. It goes back to 1953 with Project Aerodynamic, when the CIA was already in there funding Banderites or whatever in an effort to kind of destabilize the USSR all the way back then. And you can look at the documents. They've been FOIA'd. They're out there. So it's a long
we have the documents.
Yeah, we
too.
They've been funding Nazis in Ukraine since 1953.
We've been hiring Nazis, financing Nazis. It's U.S. history. It's.
What you got, Jared?
2 points. So the first one on the funding of Nazis or whatever, we all know. You can just go back a couple of years ago and look at. There's like abundance of mainstream Western and American articles that just openly talk about Ukraine's neo-Nazi problem and how they're being funded by America, and they admit it. It's not a controversial point or like some hidden like conspiracy theory. They admit that it's like, yeah, America funds and trains these groups, and they were like, oh, it's a problem. It was a problem until the war kicked off, and now it's no longer a problem because they're freedom fighters. My other point was just going.
Hold on one second. Remember talking about the base, which is like literally the English translation of Al Qaeda, and there would be like dudes from the Pacific Northwest in America going to Ukraine to train with the base, which was like the far right fucking militia, and then coming back to the U.S. to start up shit here, and now being in the fucking what's the one with the white mass all over them, the Patriot something or other.
Patriot Front.
Yeah,
Like Patriot
or like
Front or something.
3P, or
They're the
3P
ones that train
like,
big. They have very large training programs.
yeah, or and we all just know they're fucking in the military and the police as well. But continue, Jared.
So my other point was just going back to
True.
earlier when you were talking about everyone having this New York Times opinion on the Ukraine-Russia conflict and the thing about if I was Putin's mother, if I was Putin's femboy wife or something, whatever it is, but it's like
That boy.
all those
The New York
articles.
Times in Australia sounds awesome.
Striped
The
Thor
Australian
horns,
New York Times. The New York Times down under.
Yeah, my point is just that the liberal, they don't have a materialist understanding of what's going on like we do, where we look at what the reality of what's going on and how this is like an unwinnable war for Ukraine, and we understand the conflict of great powers that is going on, and Ukraine is being used as a proxy. That's what we understand. The liberals, all they have is Putin's personality, personality politics surrounding like Putla, and he's like individual.
Well, I mean,
he's sort of individualized.
let's
like,
go ahead. Fine,
psychology.
maybe we need a counterbalance. Let's counterbalance. Putin is kind of like he's extremely unforgiving. Like there's no yield. Like his rule is very totalitarian. Like
Oh, he's definitely shitty, and I'm sure he's shitty.
yeah,
as a
he's
person.
shitty.
I'm sure he's
Fine,
shitty top
let's
to bottom. But like,
counterbalance. If
that's
we're
not why
this worried about it.
what did you have? Right? Sorry.
It's kind of weird to me that people say like, if I was Putin's mother, people need to realize that Putin's mom lived during World War II, right? And she actually lost a child during the Nazi, the war with the Nazis. So what the fuck? This is kind of weird analogy. If I was Putin's mother, if I was your mother, if you were his mother, you would fucking understand the problematic shit in fucking Ukraine. Just saying, 100%. Don't bring up his mom unless you know what the fuck his mom went through. Just saying.
Valid.
Yeah, and I mean the other thing that these liberals fail to get is that Putin is the monster, quote quote, of your own fucking creation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because of the collapse of the USSR, which was facilitated by the US, right, and chipped away at for years and years and years, right, and then you get total economic ruin, right, and you got guys like Jeff Sachs who were kind of the authors of that economic ruin after that, actually coming back and saying, hey, the US actually blew up Nord Stream, right, but you have the situation where there's actual destitution, people are literally losing years on their lives due to collapsing medical care, housing, just economic security that the USSR provided, right? Because Yeltsin was a drunk fucking idiot and a lapdog of Clinton, right? So Putin comes along, still an oligarch, absolutely, right? Still a capitalist, but provides some measure of stabilization to the situation, right? And people want to pretend like this guy is, just not popular at all. That's not fucking true. I mean,
that's definitely not true. He has the it was like 80 or 90% approval rating or something at some point. It was the highest his approval rating ever got. Like his people really, like the country supports him.
Definitely before the war.
Resoundingly.
I don't know if they still chill with Putin at the moment.
I don't know, but I know it. Yeah. He's had his country's almost full approval. Like the polling has gotten as high as like 80 or 90%. I've read. Like he is at times.
I don't know how true that is because I often have a hard time sussing out the difference between like propaganda that I'm being inflicted with versus like the reality of. But on its face, I could believe that because the bar is not very high if your country is spiraling out of control the way it did after the Soviet Union collapsed. All it takes is one person to step up and not even do that fucking much. Just stop the spiral from being quite so severe. And I've seen interviews with Russians where they stated as much, like that, they didn't necessarily like criticize him, but they said that he was the only person who was able to keep things under control. And so, yeah, like it makes sense why the country would like him. Like he wasn't a great leader. He just kept shit from getting worse.
I think that's a really good point. And I think that's another thing that I wanted to bring up, which was just it's almost like a racist kind of framing that people have with when they hear about results from elections in other countries, whether it's like Russia or, we've talked about communist countries where there are like overwhelming elections that we can't imagine here in the US because people have so little faith in their own political system and they project that onto other places. So they just assume that it's because these people are brainwashed, or it's like a authoritarianism, or some kind of like they're being coerced or forced. And that's what they were saying about the recent elections about Donetsk and Luhansk to join Russia, was that it was like since the overwhelming majority of people voted in favor, that they must have been at gunpoint. They didn't have any evidence for it other than propaganda from
Okay,
the same
so
fucking outlet.
my site would be Statista, the website statista.com. They did poll the popularity in September of 22. They said that it exceeded 80%, but there was a decline after the announcement of the partial mobilization in the country after they invaded Ukraine. So I mean, it
Wasn't
has
necessarily doubting
declined.
you. I just was saying, like, from my
No,
perspective,
I just wanted to cite
yeah.
just to give people some references to what I was pulling out of my very eclectic
Gotcha.
reading.
I mean, working people don't like war, right? Because working people are going to die.
Right.
So, I mean, it makes sense that people don't want, they don't want to, it's going to decline a little bit when war breaks out. Absolutely,
Yeah.
you know? But like, Mike, to your point, I think it's the fact that Russia is not European enough, or at least not at this point in time, they're not European enough to escape Orientalism, right? Because
Seems that way,
now,
right? It's weird.
because now, and I'm sure they were, very much European when Yeltsin was there, right? Like our European brothers, right, coming back into the fold. But now they're the Asiatic hordes once again, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, it's
the
funny how
mind
that
controlled
works.
Asiatic hordes.
So I did not want to spend the entire episode on just talking about the Russia and Ukraine thing, or even just like any topics that I brought, because I was trying to combine it all into like talking about Russia and Ukraine, but also the U.S. trying to simultaneously stoke war with Iran, China through Taiwan, and now possibly Haiti. And yeah, it just seems like a ridiculous lashing out to me. But the last thing I will say regarding all that conflict is just please, people, check out Ben Norton's Multipolarista program. Check out Brian Becker's The Socialist program. Both of those are much more serious shows that delve into the details of all this. And if you would just like to hear another perspective than what the New York Times is giving you or the liberal media is giving you, that just like this is all the invention of Putler. One day he just woke up and decided to do this unprovoked. Also read Caitlin Johnstone. I could definitely like pull up any of her articles and read from them, but like we spent too much time on just this one issue already. But I did want to ask, like, since it is tied in, does anybody have any opinions or anything about the whole Iran thing? Because that is, I think, the next most controversial one. And I would just say, like,
Are you talking about the honor killing?
I don't know. There's an
Is
honor
that-
killing now. Well, okay, so this is
Well,
the whole
the-
thing. It's like the police are saying
Well,
that
the honor
person
police,
died.
killed the woman over her hijab being improperly worn or something. Is that the topic?
So that's what the U.S. media is saying, and then the Iranian police are saying that she just died of some kind of circumstances or whatever that are unrelated to her being arrested, and then you can dispute that as much as you like. I wouldn't dispute that the Iranian police killed her. It seems perfectly reasonable to me that police I'm not reasonable that they killed her, but like reasonable that it would happen. That's what fucking cops do. They kill people. Like,
ACAB doesn't just mean American cops.
exactly. That's my point. Sorry, I was phrasing it wrong, but like. Yeah, that I just don't think the U.S. has any standing to broadcast protest there as if this is something that is not happening in other countries when police kill people, as if this is something outlandish, as if police are not killing people every day here, and as if the U.S. has any standing as to say how police should treat their citizens in other countries, and also as if the U.S. doesn't have some kind of ulterior motive in interfering with Iran for regime change that they have made explicit very recently, like according to U.S. State Department interests. It's like, I just want people to learn from the pattern here and don't go, SOS Iran a mere, a year and a half after fucking SOS Cuba bullshit. It's like, people should just learn the pattern here. And even if you stand for the people who are protesting against these authoritarian police and this Islamic regime, whatever disagreements you may have with that, the U.S. does not need to fucking get involved whatsoever.
Well, Mike, I think that
We just-
history would show that the U.S. would never get involved in Iranian politics.
They wouldn't. They would not.
I mean, we just overturned Roe versus Wade. We have no leg to stand on.
Yeah.
I mean, this is another thing that goes back to the 50s, right? Like with overthrowing Mossadegh. Like he wanted to him along with the Iranian people wanted to nationalize the oil, right? And he was actually, he wasn't like, seizing it all or anything like that. He was actually in dialogue with Britain and the U.S. about all this stuff, and they fucking cooed him anyway. And that really was that, along with Guatemala, set the blueprint for a lot of stuff. So again, this is just another thing. The point I'm trying to make here is that this is, in terms of the US's focus on this particular incident, we can talk about the incident, but this is another one that it's just like, it doesn't spring up out of nowhere fucking spontaneously, people. There's a long history here that you have to understand why the US is so interested in talking about this all of a sudden, right? It doesn't come from nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not to say that like it's a CIA op that this woman was killed by the police or that they had any kind of hand in it happening. Not that I would put it past them. Do you think the CIA doesn't fucking kill people?
Like, stuff saying that this is a CIA op and they have their evidence. It's very online, so we'll see how it pans out in the future. But like, yeah, there's already people who are trying to do the legwork to say like, yeah, here is the groundwork that the CIA has laid in Iran to accomplish this.
It doesn't need to be not for them to take advantage of it and spin it to their purpose.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they absolutely, we know that they have operatives everywhere in the world that they're hostile towards, and they have people just laying in wait to take advantage of opportunities as they arise. It's their whole job. And the U.S. has just the funding to keep those people laying in wait. That blows my mind. You know what I mean? Like, just how much they must be paying these people to do this and the infrastructure that goes into it. But, like, what strikes me as really odd is how many other women have seemingly died right after. And again, that could just be the response from the police trying to quell these riots or protests or whatever is going on there. And then, of course, they get heavy-handed in certain places and shit happens and people die at the hands of police. Again, that is what police fucking do. Or it could be that the U.S. has operatives and they say, look, we just need we need some more blood on the hands of these police to really turn the tide in our favor, to really get the public sentiment. Like, I would not put that past them. How could you put any kind of amount of, like, dastardly deeds and like assassinations past the U.S. government? Do you know what you're up against here? Like,
yeah, and it's like what goes on in Saudi Arabia, right? But they're our friends, so
no, we need
in
fact we need them to up the oil production.
There's no cause for regime change there, right?
I mean, the Saudis literally did 9/11, so it's like, I don't know.
I thought that was Bush.
Yeah, I mean, and the Saudis, they all did it. It's one, I don't know, it's just one of those fucking contradictions, I guess. It's one of those fucking contradictions, mate. That's what it is.
Why are there so many of those?
Yeah, I know. They seem to be sharpening or something. I don't know. It's like,
no, and like it's just obviously solidarity with women or any victim to police brutality, right? And like any violence against working people. It's just that the U.S. empire ain't the one to fix it, and that's not what they're about. That's all.
That's not why they're going to send anyone over there.
Right.
And when the U.S. gets involved, that's a huge red flag that whatever you think happened didn't happen the way that you're being told. Like,
yeah, or if it did happen, it's getting manipulated for a certain reason in a certain way, right?
Do I think that the honor guard just killed somebody for not wearing a hijab? If I just read that news story, maybe it would be believable. But when it got the U.S. motivated to protect the women of Iran, I really quickly pieced together that was not what the fuck happened.
It's not profitable to solve a problem ever. I mean, I think people are just starting to realize, like, if you can get in somewhere and get involved and disrupt and just have precedent, that you can fund military operations, you can get the stamp of approval, you can like just cause like harm, and that's profitable. Like causing disruption as an industry.
So I did want to.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's the only way America's economy can keep the wheels on at this point, and it's always been the case. Is the westward, the whole thing about the westward expansion, right from the very beginning, Manifest Destiny. It was always about finding new land to keep the wheels on American capitalism. Is you need constant expansion. The moment you stop expanding, you collapse. That's what happens with most empires, and it's especially what happens with capitalist empires. So America, to keep the wheels on at the moment, while it's in its fucking stage of terminal decline that it is, it literally needs to be. And I don't mean needs in any moral sense. I mean needs as in just to keep this shit going, this bullshit system going. It needs to continue starting proxy wars. It needs to continue invading other countries. It just has to continue doing that until forever. That's the only way they know how to do anything. It's the only way they can keep it together at this point. So I'm not at all surprised that. What I am surprised by is that Ukraine isn't enough at the moment. I would have thought the Ukraine war would be enough to just be like, all right, we'll just focus on this proxy for now and just do this one, and we'll keep this going for like 5 or so years.
We need to free the Taiwanese as well.
Yeah, they're like,
when have we ever had more than one? Is this the first time we've done a dual? Maybe this is a new. Is this a new
Iraq,
plan?
Afghanistan. They were at the
If
same time.
America was an episode of Star Trek, we would be at the part where they say divert all power from life support systems to phasers.
Yeah.
That's where it's at. Yeah, they're literally just like, okay, well, this is working. We could do more than one of these. Let's.
Yeah. I guess I'm
Let's
just shocked.
turn it up a notch.
We have wars to fight.
I guess I'm just shocked that while America's at its like weakest point that it's been in years, it's deciding to take on multiple things at once. Like it was doing Vuvuzela. It wants to do Haiti now, and it wants to do Iran and Ukraine at the exact same time, and Taiwan. Like it wants to take on China as well, and it's just like it seems a bit suicidal. Like
That's what it's so crazy about it, right?
Yeah, like there's an American death drive going on.
It's a fucking death cult. Is exactly what it is.
Yeah.
When going into COVID, I was infinitely more optimistic than I had any right to be. Not out of genuine optimism, but I thought that capitalists would understand that you have to have just enough of a sense of self-preservation to keep going. Like profits require like a certain degree of maintenance. You need people to be able to work, to make profit. And so I was certain that there would be some like accountability for that, where they're like, okay, well, we have to do some lockdowns, we have to do this, we have to do that, whatever. And they abandoned that wholesale because they realized that they could make way more profits in the 2 to 3 month short term, even if they shot themselves in the foot on a year or two timeline. And since that, I no longer have any faith in any capitalist's ability to like look more than the profits from the next 2-3 weeks, a month.
Yeah. A quarter. That's all they think about is literally the quarter.
And they're engineering a recession right now.
No.
Well, yeah.
They're talking
no.
about it, you know.
Workers too much power, baby.
Yeah.
Like, we can't
No,
just have
you're
people
just-
demanding higher wages or
That's
shutting down the
conspiracy theory.
railroads.
What, Mike?
That's a conspiracy theory. There's no way they would openly admit that they're trying to raise rates to cause a recession because it's the only way they know to combat inflation. There's no way.
Am I going Alex Jones again?
It would be so easy to convince me that they're pretending that they're causing a recession just so they look like they have control over the situation.
I mean, they fucking said it. I mean, like Powell come out and fucking, he's doing what he does with the rates, right? And if you look at like all the like a lot of these big CEOs, I mean, they're talking about it. They're planning for a downturn.
It's not
You
good
guys were
for work.
already in a recession. That's what I thought.
We have been in for 2 quarters, but they won't admit it, so it doesn't count.
Yeah, it's weird
Just
because
we're also not having to pay for inflation. That's not real.
Yeah.
I did want to
I don't know.
$6
I believe
the
that.
other day.
I believe the strippers. I keep hearing strippers say that there's indications of a recession.
and Jamie, that's actually
And-
what I wanted to do. Was I wanted to get more into the local stuff around you because you brought it up earlier just as a quick update, but I want the full update because it has become full on national. Like I want to spend time on it. Like,
it's
what is going on
all
over there? Because
national news. There's people camping in the front yards of these people. They refuse to resign. They're trying to just go on business as usual. I mean, it's just an ongoing, developing thing. I brought it up hot, quick, and easy because it just is in a state of like ongoing. So we're hoping that we can see some resignations soon, but it's starting to look like they're really trying to hold on to these seats. Like I know that at least Kevin De Leon had national aspirations. He came from national and was coming back, and I think he wanted to be mayor next. He was hoping to be mayor of Los Angeles. And Gil Cedillo, his term was over soon anyway. He'd already lost his seat in an election that there was only one opponent, and so because Ulysses got the majority vote, Ulysses is the next city council member for that seat as soon as that seat expires, like end of this year. But the interesting thing is that it's just there is no mechanism current, like their process for removing them for saying extremely racist things on tape. There isn't one. Like there's no they didn't break a law, so there is no mechanism in Los Angeles's city charter to remove them. They have to either like break a law, break a rule. There has to be an investigation for it to be actionable. So I don't know. It's a mess over here. Beyond that, all I can say is that we have really good protests that are in their front yards. They're in front of Kevin De Leon's front yard. They've already set up tents. They plan to be there for the long haul. Black Lives Matter is there on the ground. Because I mean, the things they said were, I don't know if anybody's listened to the tapes, but I mean, these were extremely racist remarks by the people leading this city's government, making the decisions for districting based on like racism.
I heard secondhand, but they were calling like people monkeys and stuff like that. So it's like,
Yes, those were the words used.
Rick, would you have?
Yeah, I think Nuri Martinez called a little black boy a monkey in Spanish, right?
Yeah.
I mean, these people went full racist on like Armenians, black people, indigenous people in Mexico, straight like stupid shit, dude. I was just like, what the fuck? Like
they called Mike Bonin. Mike Bonin is another city council member. He's homosexual. They called him a bitch. So I mean, everybody. They disparaged everybody.
It's wild to me because if you're in an office, like you have to be. I mean, I imagine you have to be
in LA,
with exactly, with integrity, right? Not just in public, but also behind closed doors, right? But these people behind closed doors, they're just nasty. But it shows you the type of mentality that people in power have. One, and then the racism within the Mexican community itself, because Nuri Martinez is Mexican. Or I think she's Mexican, isn't she? Or Latina? I'm not really sure what she is, but she calls herself a Latina.
Yeah, she's Latina, and she did say disparaging stuff about other Latinas, specifically in my boundaries. The constituency is a very large Oaxacan community.
Yeah,
very large Oaxacan, which is like an indigenous. Some of which are also identify as the Zapotec. It's obviously like not something that I'm familiar with personally, but I have heard spoken on, and now we have protests, and in the street there's very large Oaxacan marches, and it's beautiful to see this and to see that community rising up against that. But at the same time, it's like they never should have had to hear their leaders, say these things. And it's just ongoing.
In Los Angeles, I think in Los Angeles is the largest population of indigenous Mexicans. I think it's the Zapotec community, right, which comes, I think, from Oaxaca. And I think, it's just this situation is so multifaceted, right? The integrity of politicians, the phobias they have, the homophobias, the racism, and it's just the whole. I mean, there's no laws against this, but you don't want these people in fucking positions like the way they are, right? Any aspirations to have, in my point of view, they're done, right? Your career is done. You might as well just never be in public office again. So, fuck them. The end.
Would you have, Jared?
I was just gonna say, I'm not, I'm not the best source on this, but it just makes me, it just makes me wonder if, this is just what we heard about, with these guys. We heard this tapes, we heard these guys. It makes me want, and this is like the most, quote unquote, supposedly one of the most lib states in America, and it's like just makes me wonder.
This was not Texas. This wasn't like Louisiana.
What this is what we caught on tape, and they were this comfortable discussing these extremely important decisions. I can only imagine how they are when they weren't caught on tape. I'm sure, or maybe this was the breaking point, but like what else was there that decisions were made, developments, allocation of resources, funding parks, like, this is
My point is what's happening in other
exactly
states,
that.
like
Yeah,
other parts of America. What are they saying as well? Because it's like surely they must, every
sure.
single city council or whatever, they're all saying, they must all be saying this stuff
And
everywhere.
this is the liberal one. Imagine
yeah.
the ones in the conservative states and how their decisions are
Actually,
made.
in some states, they just do this like as a campaign platform instead of hiding behind
That's
doors.
true. That's true.
But imagine how fucking vile what those people are saying behind closed doors must be as well. Because if you're up on your campaign platform being like, we need to kick them out, folks, we need to build a wall, we need to do this, what are they saying? If you put a little microphone in their office, what fucking even more heinous shit are they like saying?
The same shit, but with more hard
exactly.
slurs.
Rick,
Yeah.
Rick, what did you have?
Yeah, so if if these progressive liberal people are saying this behind closed door, I can even imagine the people that are openly like super right wing in the government, like that lady Green. Well, I forgot her whole name.
Oh yeah, Marjorie Taylor.
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
She's probably a Klan member. You never know, So I can't like all these. Like Margaret, yeah, it's just to me. I think politicians, they should have integrity. They obviously don't in the U.S. because it's all about their own interest, and then the racism comes in. This whole country is fucking racist. I'm just saying. I'm not saying everybody, but I'm saying there's a lot of things based on the race, and these people.
It's systemic.
Yeah,
we
that's
have
what
a
I'm saying.
systemic. And
So now we go ahead.
what that, for anybody that doesn't know that, I just want to make sure it's clear. Systemic means that the system's racist, and even in the absence of people, the racism is still perpetuated.
Exactly.
So please continue.
No, I agree,
Yeah.
and that's the point I'm making. I'm very blunt about it, though. So I think, I mean, it's a really shitty situation. I think this is just all over the country in all levels of government. I mean, how racist is Biden? We don't know. I'm pretty sure Trump is racist.
It's very.
What's that, Brandon?
Hey, look here, Jack.
Bill is in fact very racist.
Don't you listen to the malarkey here. He knows plenty of the blacks.
Oh yeah, I forgot about popcorn.
Okay, so also that was in the tapes. Nuri Martinez said, fuck that guy, he's with the blacks. And that was what activated Black Lives Matter. And so just on the record, on this recording, I want it to be known, I'm with the blacks. That's
a weird statement, Drew.
That's my team.
What
I know.
Weird statement, man. What the fuck? Don't you want everybody to vote for you in your district, not just the people that look like you? What the fuck?
It's
pretty
bad.
gross
So
statement.
that's why they're camping in the front yard of Kevin De Leon. We do demand a resignation, and this guy just thinks he's just going to keep his job. It's
like 3 or 4 solutions that I could offer for his resignation, but like none of them would be legal to keep in the recording.
Thank you for just intimating them. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I mean, at a minimum, like liberals, whether you're a politician or not, are going to require some level of re-education, right? Especially in like given systemic racism, right? Like at a bare minimum. Like just the example that I'm thinking of. So I was out this morning doing like housing aid, right? So, we got linked up with this mutual aid group. They do meal distribution and like necessities distribution. And we got linked up with them, and they're like a faith-based organization. And, there's some faith groups that do have like good, community engagement, like that's for sure. So we got linked up with them, and they said, one thing that we see a lot of need for is like just guidance with housing, right? So, we set up a table and we're just talking to folks, and we're having a conversation and using like the tools that are available through the city. Like, okay, like what's your situation? Are you homeless? Are you looking for rental assistance? And just trying to like point people in the right direction. Like call this number, email this person, go through this email, go through this application. You know what I mean? So like we're going through, and like I'm like, we're in the middle of a park, and I've got my laptop out. I'm helping people. And I'm working with somebody to try to get them some information, and there was a couple of people waiting. So like homelessness is obviously like a huge problem, and we're talking, and somebody comes over, and I talk to one of my comrades, and I'm like, oh hey, just remind me, what did they need? Were they homeless? Houseless? And this person from this organization comes over, and she goes, can't you tell? And I kind of looked at her. I'm like, I didn't get their story. You know, she's like, oh, you can tell because they're dirtier. And I'm like, what? And I just kind of ignored it and went on. But it's like, we're working with these people that are allegedly out here, you know, I'm
Wow.
assuming like some liberal orientation, you know, out here like to help people, but they have fucking hatred for these homeless people. Hatred. It's like, what are you even doing out here? And, you know, obviously I'm trying to thread the needle here with racism because as in like almost every city as I can imagine, you know, like our homeless population in Pittsburgh is disproportionately black people of color, you know, and it was just like this disdain that came out. So, I mean, it's just liberalism. They need re-education so bad. And it's so systemic, you know. It was just so like it was just so disheartening, you know what I mean, to hear like this vitriolic hatred coming out of this person, you know.
I routinely come across
Disgusting.
homeless people in our city that are cleaner than I am.
You know, and it's funny because like I think that is kind of a defining trait of liberalism. It's, you know, this disdain for other, that they find self-justification. They find a way to forgive themselves.
But I can come out and like make myself feel good and like feel good at night because I came out and gave some time, right? Even though I fucking hate these people,
Yeah.
I can, you know, volunteer a little bit and feel good about myself. Like, go fuck yourself.
Rick, did you have something or did you have to go?
No, I have something to say. I don't want to interrupt either. So I don't know if you want to finish your statement.
No,
No,
I'm good with that one.
Oh no, I mean this is the situation. You know, everybody's talking about how liberals do have racist or do have like sometimes like bad views, but this is exactly what my frustration is when it comes to dipping within the left and teaching them about native issues and then them saying like really stupid shit. I'm like, what the fuck's going on here? Like, do you not understand? Are you trying not to understand? You know, so it's frustrating, yes.
Yeah.
But I think we
No,
have.
and
Go ahead.
I was going to say that's exactly what's coming out in the LA leftist scene right now. Just to tie
Exactly.
into what you're saying, like they're literally going, "See, we've been telling you that
Yeah.
their literal legislation is racist, and that it can be displayed in what their policies are." And now here's the tapes of them literally saying these racist things, and just like undeniable proof. Like it's almost like all the local liberal media owes the leftist organizers an apology. It's like they've been gaslighting them for like who knows how long. They've been trying to tell them that it's this way, and they've been telling them, no, you need to be respectful. You need to like, you know, have your procedure. You need to follow all the processes correctly because what you're doing is inappropriate. And it's like, no, that was an appropriate response to what they knew was true. And now there's undeniable proof. We honestly, yeah, like the LA Times owes most of the fucking organizers in Los Angeles an apology.
I have something to
Just
say.
others
real quick.
too, but yeah, go ahead.
I gotta go.
Oh,
Well, thank you for joining us, Rick. Yeah, we
So-
do have to wrap it up, but I wanted to see
All right.
what Brandon would say. I mean, check out Decolonize Buffalo. Thank you for joining us, Rick. But I mean, and also just
Thank
as a side note, for anyone
Thanks,
who has
Rick.
been listening to any of these and has not checked out the show notes, that like the show caption, and subscribe to all the other podcasts that we link in there, like you're definitely missing out. Like whoever's feed you're hearing this in, please subscribe to all the other podcasts because like there's a lot of good shit going on that you're probably missing if you haven't. But Brandon, what'd you have? Sorry.
I was just going to say that this, like, both what Rick was saying as well. It's sort of a testament to how you need to be involved with the communities that you're organizing with, like, because it's so easy to stereotype and have an idea of what like an indigenous person looks like, what a homeless person looks like, what any group is that you're not familiar with. Like to say that like the ones that look homeless, it hides the fact like like a lot, like, you know, a lot of us will recognize, but in general people don't, like the amount of people that experience homelessness but are you know, it's temporary, it's short term, they're working while homeless, so they have to stay clean and they find ways to do that. Like I have never been homeless for significant amounts of time, but I've been homeless and a lot of my friends have, and you learn tricks like you get a gym membership because it's cheap and you can use the showers, things like that. Like you need to be acquainted with the groups that you're working with. Like, because every one of the fucking homeless people in our city is a fucking person with a whole backstory, and like there's reasons they are that way. It's a material analysis of an individual. Like, they got to that point because of systemic reasons or personal reasons, psychological reasons, whatever. And you have to know that to some degree to be able to work with them and move forward. And I don't know. I just anytime I hear something like that, where it's like, yeah, the dirty ones, it's like, well, fuck you, first of all. But like, also, like, learn the issue that you're actually fucking dealing with, because there's a lot more fucking to it than they're dirty, they must be homeless. Like,
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, I wanted to wrap it up there. I mean, I the only other point I had to that was it you, Nick, that was saying that people need to be re-educated? It was weird that like kind of sparked a thought in me that like maybe we wouldn't even need to do as much re-education as we expect, and maybe it would just be a matter of removing the brainwashing media that is doing the educating now. Because I
100%.
wonder how much of that vitriol would remain if people just had the Fox News and CNN removed from their lives. Like, if those corporations would collapse in some future, utopic vision of America that we have, I wonder how much of that would remain if people just actually saw these people day to day, even doing like the organizing you're describing, and then didn't have the kind of literal 2 minutes of hate every night to like reiterate the disdain for other humans that they have. Like you're saying, it's just, I feel like that would go away, just like all the hate for the other. It would just, these fucking hashtags that people make just to hate on people. It's just,
I think their re-education should just be they have to clean up the wall after we're done, and then they'll learn a big lesson.
No, but I think
I like that.
I think that's a good point. And I'm sorry, I just got one more because I was out the day before at like a another campaign and just having conversations with people on the streets, right? And talking to some, 62-year-old woman, working person, right? And we were talking about how shitty the bank is because we were protesting like the one of the banks that's around here investing in like all the defense contractors, right? So the campaign is called Stop Banking the Bomb. We were talking about like how banks, just fuck working people all the time. And, we're having a very like anti-capitalist conversation, and then one of the points that this person brought up is just like, yeah, like take care of our own people, you know what I mean? And it was like going in that direction. And it's just like, but just the way you said, like the news media, and it's like, this person has beautiful instincts, right? In terms of like loving people, but it's just that like that saturation through the zeitgeist of like anti-immigrant talking points that comes through even on CNN. You know what I mean? It's not just Fox, like they're very like otherizing, even in, again, the quote, the most liberal, news, mainstream news outlets and things like that. So I just, to your point, I think that would go a long way if we could just cut that shit out,
Yeah.
because people's instincts are often good,
No, but only Russians are propagandized, man.
Right.
Jamie, you had something?
No. Also the Chinese.
Oh, of course.
That's right.
Of course. Jamie, did you have something? Because I was going to wrap it up there.
No, I just, thank y'all again for another good episode. This is always, it's almost therapy.
Yeah. That's the whole
So,
idea behind this.
I mean-
Everybody just brings something that they were pissed off about for the week, and then we talk about it. And
I mentioned gaslighting, like it's like we are all in a constant state of gaslighting, with the neoliberal media. So it's just good to have, all these pieces of media, all these podcasts, and, like myself streaming, and just knowing that, there are people talking about these things and giving other people something so that, they too can be validated and not, perpetually gaslit. So again, just thank you all.
yeah, thank you guys all for joining us. I actually was kind of pissed we didn't get to any of the Seeing Red segment that I brought, because I brought a whole bunch of like fucking infuriating comments from Reddit that I wanted to just go off on. But fuck, I'll do a second one this week if you guys want to. Just hit me up. But yeah, thank you guys
Yeah.
again. This was another fun one. Can't wait to do it again.
Good night, y'all.
comrades.
See you, comrades.
Easy.